Hello, everybody. Today's review is on 10 Cloverfield Lane. So, the plot of this movie is this lady named Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, gets stuck in the middle of a traffic collision, and then when she wakes up, she finds herself in a bunker, and she finds out she was rescued by this guy named Howard, played by John Goodman, and she finds out that there it's really dangerous outside. There's a big chemical warfare pollution going out, and it's causing a lot of deaths, she she finds out that she was being held there to prevent herself from being exposed to all the chemicals and deadly gases. So Howard keeps her there and basically tries to protect her, although we'll get to that later. And then later she finds out that there's this other guy named Emmett who is also being held held captive basically, and so Michelle really wants to go out and try to escape Howard's clutches because Howard is really overpowering her and doesn't want them to escape, and he becomes really homicidal and crazy. So Michelle has to secretly try to escape Howard's clutches without him knowing. Okay, I guess you could argue, if you've never seen this movie, you could probably guess from the title this is a sequel to Cloverfield, and you're kind of wrong because if you don't know my thoughts on the first Cloverfield movie, I did review it a couple of years ago. I think it's a good film. It's a bit of a slow burner, but it all works out in the end. It's an interesting found footage style film. I know those movies are kind of divisive. I think they kind of go either way for me, but Cloverfield, I think it's really fun, even if it's a bit of a slow burn. I do think all the monster stuff's really cool, and I think the whole found footage style does make it a bit interesting, and it makes it a little all the more suspenseful because it makes you kind of feel like you're there, even though not really. This movie, it has almost nothing to do with Cloverfield. It's really just Cloverfield in name only. Yeah, you could literally just watch this movie without having to watch the first Cloverfield, and you'll be totally fine because other than the fact that J.J. Abrams produced both movies, I really don't see the connection here, unless maybe there's something from the first Cloverfield movie I just didn't remember. But aside from that, it's a good movie in and of itself. It's more creepy and thrilling than outright scary. Because I mean, it is a horror film, but it's not. It doesn't have the traditional horror tropes that you expect. Like there's not a lot of deaths, there's not a lot of jump scares, there's not really much of that. Most of it comes from the tension and the thrills, because yeah, I'd say this is, I guess it is technically a horror movie, so I guess I would classify it as that. But if you were to ask me, I'd say this is kind of more of a thriller, because there's a lot of tension throughout the movie, and the fact that Michelle is being held captive against this really crazy man, and John Goodman really, his performance is really good. I think his performance really is what steals the show. Kind of like how Russell Crowe in that, what was that one movie he was in where he was the Unhinged, kind of like that, where he's basically it's really over the top, and sometimes he's a bit cheesy in some ways, but his performance is really what makes it fun, about how he's some deranged guy who really wants what he wants, and he won't stop until he gets it. And yeah, and his interactions with Mary Elizabeth Winstead is really good, and she does great in the movie too. Don't get me wrong, I think she is quite a good lead, and I don't think I've ever seen Mary Elizabeth Winstead play a lead role. Usually she's a side character, and which is a shame. I'd like to see her in more lead roles. I think she's really good in this. She's a very underrated actress, and I think this should probably convince more people that maybe she should get more lead roles, because I think she's really got it. And she's not new to the horror genre, obviously, because she did Death Proof. So I think this movie will hopefully inspire some directors to think maybe Mary Elizabeth Winstead has lead potential, and I think she's really good in the film. Like, you definitely feel sorry for her that she's being stuck with this insane guy, and there's another guy who tries to help her secretly, Emmett, like I said, and yeah, it kind of does the basic thing you'd expect. They try to secretly help each other out and escape, but when, of course, Howard comes, he's like, "What's going on here?" And sometimes they have to act casual, but yeah, a lot of times it does not end up well. But I don't want to give too much away, but it's a really thrilling movie. Like, it's not scary. Like, I wasn't really feeling scared. Mostly I was like, whoa, this is pretty intense. It's more intense than it is scary, but like I said, I mean, for a horror film, like, it does try. It definitely tries to make use of the scenario that it's given. Like, the whole idea of balancing out your decisions. Like, would you rather be stuck in a house being dominated by some deranged guy, or would you rather go out in a chemical warfare? Like, it's a pretty intense uh anxiety filled situation. So I think that's definitely kind of what makes it scary, when it's kind of a lose-lose situation. So I think that's really what does make it a good horror film, where you're not really safe from anything. So I think that's a really good kind of plot when it comes to horror films, where it's not good either way. So I like movies like that, where, like, no matter what direction it goes in, like, you can say it's going to have tension and thrills either way, and it really delivers on the tension and thrills. And there isn't a lot of scares, but I mean, I guess if you don't like the idea of a stranger being with you and trying to hold you captive, I guess it's scary, because, yeah, I guess people they don't know, like, yeah, that can be a scary scenario for them. So I really like that they tried to do not a typical horror movie plot. They tried to do something that some people would really be scared by. And yeah, I mean, it's not a completely scary movie in my opinion. Not It's not a very scary horror film, but I guess for some people, if they don't like the idea of this could be really thrilling and tense. So I think it's a really fun film. It's very short. It's like probably only 100 minutes at most. So, but it's really paced well, and it goes by quick. And like I said, it has almost nothing to do with the first Cloverfield. So you can just watch it without watching the first Cloverfield, and you won't be lost. It'll just be a completely new film for you. And I did kind of want to see this. I actually was thinking about seeing this in theaters when it came out, but at the time I didn't see the first Cloverfield, so I thought, I probably might see the first Cloverfield sometime before us. But honestly, I could have seen it, but I chose to see Zootopia instead. But I think I could have gone to see this. I think even if I at the time not seeing the first Cloverfield, I think I could have enjoyed this fine. But hey, sometimes we miss out on a lot of stuff. But this is a really good film. I don't know if I'd say it's as good as the first Cloverfield. Actually, it's kind of hard to compare them because they're two totally different movies. One's a monster movie. This is basically a horror thriller. So it's basically kind of incomparable. But if you thought the first Cloverfield was a bit underwhelming and you didn't really like the found footage stuff and the slow burn and the fact that it was just building up to a monster, you might like this one a little bit more. It's definitely paced a lot better. And there's a lot more thrills and a lot more tension throughout the whole movie. So in some ways, I guess it's better than Cloverfield, but I did like Cloverfield's low budget beat like found footage style. So I guess, like I said, they're very different movies, and you can't really compare them. But 10 Cloverfield Lane, it's a really good film with really good performances and some really tense moments. And yeah, it's a fun film. It's not fantastic. I wouldn't say it's one of the best horror films of the past 10 years. I don't think it would even be in that realm, but I still think it's a really good movie, and it's worth the watch whether you've seen the first Cloverfield or not. It's a totally different movie. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's a good one to watch. If you want to watch a scary movie on Halloween tomorrow, but you don't really like jump scares or gore or anything, I think this is a good one to watch. Like, it's more intense than scary, but it's quite good, and I really enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, tomorrow's the big day, Halloween. Maybe I'll review something, maybe I won't, but hopefully I'll try to do something that day, even if it's not on the internet. So take care, everybody, and hope you all have fun on Halloween tomorrow.